shit.
All right. I mean, this is kind of cool because I'm mostly in Shadow.
Yeah, so
It's very mysterious. It's sort of like,
Yeah.
Shadow, I can't do it.
time, gadget.
So we're gonna record it, so basically if you guys miss any parts of it, don't worry, we'll have it up on the website afterwards.
You want to turn the music down for this?
Yeah.
Yeah, we should.
And by the way, I guess all on the right.
It is not on the right.
Perfect, thank you.
Thank you. All right.
So we have, you're welcome to ask any questions. We also have a bunch of people already sent in that we talked about as staff. So we're gonna go through those first, if that's okay. And that's
Fine with me.
Sure.
I mean, yeah, or like I can do one of these like pre-asked questions, and if there's like a burning one out in the audience, like we can do that too. I don't mean this to be like super formal or anything, but so, and I've kind of been talking to you guys about like some minor details of the world, but I haven't really gone into too much graphic description of the setting. But so one of the first questions we got was what kind of game is this? Which is a very broad question, and I say it with kind of a smirk, but it's what does that question mean exactly? So I'm gonna in broad strokes, this game is not a game of secrets. It is a mystery game. And by that I mean I don't intend to have there be a lot of like mechanics. I don't intend there to be a lot of like, you know, stuff that's hidden mechanically or even world knowledge wise. Like anyone can read any of the culture packets. That's fine. You know, if you're only limited in how much knowledge you would like to seek out. That being said, it is a game of mysteries. So as you do read those packets, there are things that are deliberately left vague. With how the world has shifted, there's a lot of stuff that's not known. People aren't good historians anymore or scholars. So there's a lot more focus on survival and on how do I survive to the next day, where do I get my next meal? And so people are not putting a lot of time and effort into big questions, like where did we come from? What was the war that ended this city? Like a lot of that's kind of missing. It's out there, and a couple of us definitely know the deeper lore, but there is a lot of deep lore in the world, and it's there by design. It's there for you to discover and go after should you choose to. There is not, this isn't like a set run game. It doesn't have a beginning and an end. And we've got like game one, obviously, there's kind of a beginning. But we're not limited run. We will go until no one wants to play anymore. and so it's kind of what you guys want to make of it. We definitely have plot, we have meta plot, we have things planned like that, but there's a lot of freedom for you to also develop what you want, pursue what you want. And we would call ourselves, it's actually kind of hard, we struggled for a while, because initially when I was coming up with this game, I was like, oh, it's like a post-apocalyptic Western. But then that gave people the wrong idea. That gave them like cowboy hats and like, and so that I don't want to. It's not a Western, but it kind of is. It's a post-apocalyptic fantasy world, and you know, much like Gothic or Lion Age, I'd call it kind of like a medium fantasy, but that's kind of how you define it. It's like there's not dragons, but there's magic. You know, so there's demons. You know, there's things like that that are of the supernatural world in the setting. So I'd definitely call it fantasy. It's horror, it's survival, it's mystery. We are not a lightest touch LARP, nor are we like a balls out wail on each other with full force. It's a medium contact LARP. There's what else? What else should I say about it? We've changed a lot. I know one of the questions is what are the differences between Age of Ashes and Lion Age? So I think most folks here have at least played Lion Age at some point. And most of the similarities are in the world structure and not like the history and things like that. But this game is one possible future. For kind of obvious reasons, I don't want to like marry this game to Lion Age because that makes all kinds of weird timeline issues. Like, what if something totally goes off the rails in Lion Age, or what if like we do something super screwy in our game? So like we want to have like the connections and the threads that bind the games and the worlds, but I want to be clear that this is not like a railroad track trolley car. Like, this is definitely linked in time to the Lion Age. It's time is weird and it's a possibility. We have very different mechanics, and that's because of the setting. We've put a lot of, our order of operations has actually been to write a lot of the setting as a first priority. And we're also definitely doing mechanics alongside it, but we wanted to be, it made a lot more sense just to have the foundations of the world, to know our themes, to know our cultures, to know what's there, so that we know what mechanics to write. And obviously the mechanics are important, but you need to know what you're role playing. You know, so anyway, so that's kind of where we're starting from. Does anyone have like follow-up questions to that? Because I'm kind of trying to touch a lot of different areas with the broad question of what kind of theme is this? Okay. Someone wanted to know how deck works, and that was actually so we don't have many mechanics posted on our website yet because we're still tweaking them and getting ready to playtest them. And so I don't want to like put stuff up and get people excited about mechanics that we might change. And actually on the back, on the bench there, on the back wall, there's some sign-up sheets if people are interested in helping us playtest the rules.
We do have a playtest coming.
Yeah, pretty quick, like within 2 weeks, I think, we have our first playtest for combat. So that's kind of why you'll notice that our website's very sparse. But one of the few rules that we have up is our death and dying system, because that's kind of a foundational weird thing about the world. And that is that people don't tend to stay dead. And this is kind of, we tied it to your knowledge of who you are. And so if you want more information about this, go to our website and kind of like detail it out. But in broad strokes, for the purpose of this Q&A, you, the player, have a lot of say in whether or not your character is going to die. It's permanently, I should say. Yeah. I mean, it's actually pretty easy to die in the world, but there's a very high likelihood that you'll come back. And it's not really random. It's based on your devotion and your knowledge of yourself, which is tied to your devotion. So it's, how did you die? Did you die in service to your devotion? Did you die completely forgetting who you are and going against your devotion? If you die like in a kind of standard way, like someone just came through an alley and took your stew, you know, that doesn't really have anything to do with your devotion. Or your potato, your tougher. You'll come back, but you've lost a core memory. One of the things that you figure out in your character creation of your character is 7 core, very important memories of who you are. And so if you have like a normal death, you'll come back, but you've lost one of those. And this is kind of like through this cycle that each time you die, it's a little harder to remember who you are. And you can make new memories. And that's why I say you've got a lot of power over this. Like if something really cool happens at game, you can once again say like, this is a new memory for me. Like, I've fallen in love, and this was so important, and so this is my new memory to replace one that I've lost. But so your character will morph and change over time if you're going through this cycle of death and rebirth. If you die and you are like doing something that's completely unlike you, it means you strain more from who you are, and so you'll lose 4 memories if you die going against your devotion. If you die in service to your devotion, doing something that completely makes sense, you've got love of family and you're protecting your family, you don't lose anything. You can at that point, if you really want to, you can come back, or you can choose to die peacefully. You can choose to be at peace, at rest, and you are permadead. But you get a little reward, which I think is detailed up on the website. It's actually a good thing if you die peacefully. And then you can play a new character with some little perks added to it. If you lose all of your memories, if you've completely lost touch with who you are permadead, but you're a Night Malefic. And we may ask you periodically to play your Night Malefic character if you're cool with that. So that's kind of how the death and dying system generally works. And yeah, so are there follow-up questions to that? Yeah.
Sort of, and it ties back to the first one. What does a game look like? Like, am I constantly running from monsters? Are the monsters only come out at night? Do I need to go out and opt into that sort of danger, or does the danger come to me?
The danger will come to you, most likely, but it's also out there. There's going to be encouragements for you to wander out into the wilds to find dangers as well out there. We're definitely going to have... So actually, that's a good question. So one of our core philosophies is we want as much action as possible to happen at game. And so we're going to have cool gathering stuff to happen at game. If your character is like a gatherer, crafter, or whatever, we're going to have different stuff to do at game to give you the cool stuff. Because one of the questions is, how do you spend your time at LARP? Yeah, how do you spend your time at game? And what's fun? And what do you have to do? And so this is definitely going to be, and it depends on the number of support staff, obviously, but the intention is for it to be a high encounter, high monster game. There's a lot that's wrong with the world. There's a lot of Night Malefic. They don't just come out at night. Night is more dangerous, but there's dangers in the day too. Yes. And what Megan was saying was we also want to increase the amount of people monsters. People are monsters too. And as this is a world of scarcity, this is a game of scarcity, there is competition for resources. With that being said, people are going to have to get kind of creative because it's not going to solve your problem to kill off your competition. They'll just come back. So you're going to have to think your way around the situation and figure out how you want to deal with that. But so you're going to have gang warfare, you're going to have guilds fighting, you're going to have families feuding, you're going to have all kinds of interpersonal PvP conflict. It does not necessarily mean that you're going to lose your character. And did that answer the question?
I mean, it led to a new one.
Okay.
But, so.
See your other side.
Sorry, I don't.
No, it's okay. It's okay. You got time.
Let's say Gotha, for instance, is run by these gangs and run by these gang leaders. Like, what sort of ways do they keep people in line without violence?
So there's different ways. Maiming's pretty serious in this world. Because basically, if you got like an old name as in a name that like was not obtained during the thing that killed you, like that's staying.
Oh.
So maiming's a really big deal.
Okay.
It also does really suck to die. You know, like it's not great. It's not fun. But most of the punishments in the world are more like isolation, banishment, maiming, things like that are honestly pretty awful to separate you from your loved ones and your family, which may be a reason why you end up on the game site.
Sure.
But yeah, so and Coralites are nasty bad dudes, and given that death isn't permanent and there's a lot of atrocities being committed, there's just people that are stuck in cycles sometimes of dying and suffering and dying and suffering, and it creates some pretty monstrous situations. So.
Are there, you mentioned post-apocalypse, are there survival mechanics too? Like, do I need to eat, or am I assuming you?
I'm not gonna make the players deal with stuff like how do I find housing? So the baseline is going to be, and don't quote me on this because we might still tweak this, but what we currently are operating under the assumption is that we're going to have everybody basically start with the assumption that you know how to feed yourself. You know how to feed yourself and you know how to find shelter. It's a rough world and everybody's capable. So I'm not going to make you figure out each game how you're getting your food. But that being said, choices can be made to give up your food. You can start here, and then through your choices, you can start out starving or problematic. There might be flaws. There might be actions you can take in game to give up your standard resource, and then you can be at that disadvantage. Yeah. Thank you. Yes.
So when you die, besides your core memory potentially being affected, do you remember dying? Do you remember being killed, or is there does it get kind of fuzzy there at the end?
There's a chance.
Yeah, there's a chance.
Yeah, there's a chance you might remember how you got killed. But the standard most likely scenarios is kind of gonna be like in Lineage with the Miracle. Like you don't really remember like the 5 to 10 minutes surrounding your death, what exactly happened, but there's a chance. Yes, Josh.
Kind of in line with what is the aim of the game and what do you do at game, is one of the primary ideas of being resource acquisition sort of situation? Are we all going around trying to build up our personal survival boards? Is there a advanced stage where it's world building, or is it very sort of granular and more of a microcosm of play where we are, but the rest of the world is just as shitty, just over there?
So I think that's actually a couple questions in one. Yes, there is intended to be a resource gathering element to the game. Yes, there will be a city building system. It's going to be a little more simplified because I'm not anticipating. This is where I said earlier, like it's kind of a Western. Like you're going to be, the stage of the game is going to be in a to be announced settlement site, and you're not going to start with much. And so part of it is building up your defenses, but I'm not anticipating there's not going to be like lords and war councils or anything like that. It's a much more small scale building up your town. So there will be a city building option should you choose to exercise it. The rest of the world, we're still kind of measuring the pros and cons of how accessible the rest of the world should be to you. I foresee there being like a simple travel system, but the world's very shitty, and so much of your world is where you are, and trying to make that work. And so I'm not yet sure like how much I want you to like go off into the greater world, but it's there, and I also don't necessarily want to hamper everyone. So I wouldn't expect that much of your game is going to be spent doing stuff off stage. Like I'm going to overthrow Fenrisstack and take it back from the Quarrelites. Like that's kind of outside of the scope of the game as I envision it. Like for the first quite a few years anyway. You guys might surprise me, but I would not expect that kind of interaction with the world within the game at this point. And if you guys want to jump in too, I'm doing a lot of talking. Yes.
Sorry, this was kind of short, but when you encounter monsters, how often do you fight them versus how often do you run away? Like in a given, like what's the vision? I know it'll be different depending on the people involved, but
yeah, I don't know. I mean, it kind of depends on whether you're encountering a person or a Night Malefic, because Night Malefic function the same way as they always have, in that they'll keep coming back if they're not solved. You've got to figure out what is the deep wrong in the world that caused this Malefic to be there, and how do I fix it? So that's it. So you can temporarily solve those problems by slashing at them, but they're gonna come back.
Also very culture specific.
Yeah.
Different cultures have different ideas of how they interact with the world around them. And for the Gothics, for example, given how much they are survival of the fittest, they're much more likely to fight. That would be my idea. But it's a personal choice, it's also a culture choice.
Mechanic question, you said there were 7 core memories and we lose one if you die. If you have 7 core memories and you make a new memory, do they stack or do you only have 7?
Maximum 7, but you can like refill them.
Okay.
Yeah.
And if you really want to make a new one, when you already have 7, you have to decide which one you're getting rid of.
Okay.
Where in the world is the game site at?
Can I tell them that?
We have a map.
Yeah.
I mean,
It's on the map.
it's on your passport.
It is.
It's one of the
It is on
locations on your passport.
It's not.
Is it the
Poor
ugly?
Max. Wow. So mad at me.
I mean, it has to be in Seattle, so so it's like,
Yeah.
It's not in the deserts.
I'm just gonna tell him. The site of the game is gonna be in Cenotaph.
Oh, okay, I see it.
Yeah.
Do you want to point it out on the map?
What was that?
You want to point it out on the map?
I don't have a map up here.
It's right here.
Oh, this is one of our big
Check
graphic
that.
houses, actually. This is the map.
Upside down.
It's upside down. That's all right. So the site of the game will be in the forests down here.
which
Well, it was a big forest before Angoka. It was a very big forest. You guys can find it on the old flag.
also in the hardback, there's a map of just the Gothic cultures
On the back.
too.
So, yeah, just because the Pacific Northwest, so the trees area. So, okay. Anybody else?
This question about the 7 memories. When we lose one, is it random? Does staff get to choose one that's like, it would be fun for you to lose this one? How does that work?
Actually, I was gonna let the players choose.
Yeah.
That's kind of what I was thinking. I mean,
What do you think is the coolest? Do you lose this?
yeah, like what is the coolest? Do you want us to choose for you? Yeah, I could choose for you.
You don't like lose, yeah, or do you want us to just make a decision on the most painful thing?
I think it's fair for staff to actually pick it rather than.
That's what I
players.
imagine.
It would be kind of
That's my
cool
opinion.
because it could also give you like the
It'd
magic.
be a surprise for them as well.
Yeah, tragic.
Okay. Matter like roll a die or something.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
We'll take that one back. Very cool. All right.
Extension of the death memory question. Is there a known method of retrieving your lost memories? Do they exist somewhere that you can fish them back out? Myths and legends.
Myths and legends.
Myths and legends.
Yeah. People say that there's pairs.
I'm sure they do.
It is said.
It is said. Rumors said.
I'm sure there's been a salesman or two.
Yeah.
Buy the snake oil. Yes. That was like one of the most oft used phrases in our culture packet for a while. It just said that. Rumor has it.
See what it is.
All right. So I was asked about the physicality of the LARP. I think I covered that. We're medium contact.
If you want more specifics, full speed, reduced force. In a nutshell.
We do allow physical contact with things like brawl and grapple, but it's touch the arm to
Shoulders,
signal
arms.
that's happening. Yeah, the shoulder, the arm. This is the area to touch for that. The question was asked, like, how does your fade to black work? It's what you'd expect, but I'm gonna go into it. When a player says, like, I want to fade to black, the scene immediately ceases. And we've got kind of a very stern fade to black policy because we're putting the responsibility on you guys, on the player base, to know what is and is not okay with you as an individual, because that's going to change. Something may have happened in your life where what was okay yesterday is now today not okay. Your mood might have shifted, like so. And we are not censoring any topics in this LARP. So that's just it's on you guys to please communicate. And if you feel like you're not comfortable communicating what is and is not okay with you, like just use the Fade to Black and grab a staff member, and we'll take care of it for you. We can narrate the scene without you. We can narrate the scene with you there. But we also use the check-in system too. Like if there's a sensitive or an intense scene happening, like check in with each other, like take care of each other, and you want to kind of show the.
Oh yeah. So there's always like you can ask them without breaking the ice, which is nice. You like, and the person will kind of smile like, yeah, I'm good, or I'm having a really rough time. I need to like dial that. Be careful, or I need to get out of this. And the responsibility we ask everybody is if someone does give you a thumbs down, let's help them leave in character. But this way you can express this interest without actually having to like break character. So I know some people feel bad about that. Yeah. So the goal is to like check in, be like, so see someone's like, so also someone's like crying, like usually they'll be like, oh yeah, I'm fine.
Yeah, I'm great. Please don't bother me. Or let me look at this cool, intense scene. Yes.
So to clarify, a thumbs down is essentially a soft paper block.
Yes, it is. It's a soft Fade to Black. It's not necessarily like we need to end this right now, and we'll have staff negotiate how this goes. This is more of like a I need out. Can you please help me out of this scene, like gracefully? And like I say, like it's we do have a code of conduct. It should be up on the website. Yeah. We do a code of conduct. It's kind of similar to what you're used to. There are some differences. And so it's just kind of we're a community. We don't all have to love each other, but like we're a community. Like let's look out for each other. Let's have fun. Let's play a game. So that's Fade to Black and the check-in system. We use a check-in system. Yes.
Yes. Just in the way the check-in system is described, you can just give the thumbs down when you wait for someone to ask.
Yes. Oh, totally. Yeah. It doesn't have to be like a dial progression. No.
Yeah. And if you're feeling bad, you can just like go like right now. How do you get out?
Yeah. Yeah. How does sex work?
We can pull up a video. Here, you should know.
So romance and sexual scenes can definitely occur in a LARP. We're aware, and we want to make sure that these scenes are comfortable and fun for everybody involved. So there's kind of two options if you're going to engage in a consensual adult situation with your characters in the LARP. And one is to role play all the flirting and all the buildup that you want until the sexy time would explicitly actually occur, and then you can kind of like soft break the scene and sort of narratively describe what happens to each other. Or you can do the second option, which is kind of cool. Adit actually inspired it for me long ago, and it's that you basically, and it's all kind of because it's going to involve multiple people. And it has both options to include multiple people, but you sit down and you face each other, and you make eye contact and take turns saying words and phrases that are not like overtly sexual words, but you'll kind of describe the emotions and feelings and the tone that is happening. Like I could say eager but nervous, and then your turn, and you can kind of describe your tone or situation, like enthusiastic but clumsy, feral, or whatever. and so when you feel like you've like played this word game and gotten to the end of the sex scene, then you can kind of finish with a phrase or a word of how you feel. That's disgusting. scooch it along or fade to black, you know. But yeah, so those are the ways in which sex will be handled in Age of Ashes. Is a much more narrative, communication style of how it's done. Yes.
Are we going to see a return of dirty old Chantel and her conception holes?
I sure would love to.
As one of the more notable victims of that, very exciting.
Yeah. I do want pregnancy. I do want pregnancy roleplay to be opt-in. So if anyone does not want to do that, that's fine. But yeah, like I would love to roll some dice and let you know if it's Prego or not. Like dirty old Chantel, that was my favorite thing to do.
Also, we always want to know when you're having sex with character all the time.
Yeah,
Just don't
that's
spread.
We need to know.
Yeah.
It's important. Mechanical.
Mechanic.
It's
Mechanical.
Yes, it is.
It's all about the mechanics. It's not about. I totally should. What kind of props do you allow? And again, you guys just feel free to raise your hands. I'm just kind of covering this up. Just like pre-submitted. Yeah.
Stages of life related. Do people die of old age as well?
Oh, that's an interesting question. Yes and no. So usually, like, if you think about it, people don't necessarily like die of old age in their life. They die of something. Their heart gives out. They have a stroke. Like something happens. And so as you age, you'll have a tendency to probably start dying more frequently. But by the time you've reached a ripe old age, kind of one of two things has happened. You either are more at peace with yourself and who you are, and you're very comfortable in your own skin, and you're likely going to die in accordance with something that makes you die peacefully. Or you've lived long enough to have everybody that you care about and everything that you've ever loved shattered and disappear around you. And so there's a higher percentage that you will come back as a Gothic. So people, there's not like a lot of like ancient mummy people sitting around. It's like at a certain point, like people do tend to die one way or the other. But it's just kind of the nature of progressing along in your life and living that long. Yeah.
So obviously you were saying that wounds from the death tend to heal afterwards. What happens if like the body is utterly destroyed?
Put them back.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just curious.
Yeah.
If that was a...
So I'll tell you, it's a little cartoony, but so basically, if you're coming back, your body's gonna sort of like dissolve. Like if your corpse is like out there and it's like in a million pieces or it's been pulverized or whatever, it'll just kind of like ash and rot away, and then you will resurrect elsewhere in the game sites.
Okay.
You resurrect the next day at dawn, and staff will choose where your body has resurrected.
So I was curious specifically because I was reading part of the packet talk about the fact that parents who become too old will oftentimes, if their children are starving, will feed themselves to their children.
Yeah.
So the only season that I like is a short form until they earn from a little while before it attaches. So it's only limited sustenance.
Oh, there's a lot of hands now. Luke, I guess? I'll work backwards.
So I die and I have this really cool item with me. Does it also ash?
Nope.
All right.
Nope.
Nope.
Killing people is still a very effective way to leave their bodies. Yep. All right, I'm working backwards. There's your hands up.
Answered my question.
Okay. Oh, same. Okay.
Okay, so if the body is indisposed, it ashes, it refigures somewhere else, right? So
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah, but if you're like perma-dead, if you're like dead, your body stays behind to be given proper affection and attention.
So when someone dies, most of the time people will watch them and they'll keep awake over the body overnight to see if it aches. And if the sun rises the next day and they're still there, you know you're
And then you can eat them.
And then you can eat them if you wanted.
Nice.
Yeah, totally. Yes.
So their body parts and everything only ash if they die.
They
so I could
ash
like,
them.
But like when they come back, right? But if I was like hack off my limb and I'm still alive and you're eating off of me, that food's not going to turn bad gash in your stomach because I'm still alive.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. The technical right is my favorite kind of right. So I do appreciate that question.
But it also means that that's a fixed main that will never get repeated.
Yeah.
Yes, it does.
It's correct. Correct.
Josh, did you have one?
Yeah. So. Cool.
Happens to me all the time.
Yeah. What kind of props do you allow in terms of weaponry? Whatever's safe. If you make a homemade boffer weapon that is safe, great. If you want to use a latex weapon that looks really pretty that is safe, great.
As per usual, we'll test all equipment.
Yep. Every game.
Before the event.
Yeah. Every game. Hopefully it's we're trying to work to make check-in a semi-painless process. But we definitely want to do safety checks, and so it doesn't matter to me if you want to make your weapon at home or whatever. It's just you might run a higher risk of it being rejected for safety. But yeah.
Related to weapons, how high technology is this world? Where is that at?
That's a good question. So the reason why in the beginning I called this game a post-apocalyptic game is that like the world didn't just end yesterday. It actually like kind of got shattered and empires fell like quite a while ago. And this ends, and people coming back from the dead, like that's all very well established. Like that's all these people have ever known. Technology advanced a bit, but since there hasn't been a lot of resources sunk into science and technology and development, you're not going to see a whole lot of advancement. That's kind of I think that we roughly kind of, and this is not a historic LARP at all, but yeah, I'd say like roughly like 1600s, 1700s is kind of like the level of technology we're talking about. Imagine like the world faced a huge disaster at the end of the 1700s, and probably got a good idea of where we are. There's a lot of differences among the cultures. Thanks. Like one culture in particular has more clockwork type stuff. I'm hesitant because I'm trying very hard to not like venture into steampunk territory too much. There's not really steam technology. There's not engines or anything like that, but there's clockwork. And some cultures have very limited access to technology. So that's kind of a cultural difference. That'll kind of be some options for choosing character creation also. The understanding of medicine is different in a lot of cultures than the way it was in the Lion Age. We've kind of progressed in a lot of areas more to the Four Humors style of medicine, instead of like all sickness and disease is caused by religious issues, possession, things like that. So there is one culture that still very strongly believes that. But yeah, so hopefully that can answer the question. All right.
There were other hands at one point.
Yeah, I saw different London I just wanted to point out that I made the costumes.
Oh yes, thank you. Yes, we've got some amazing examples of Gothic costumes that has been lovingly crafted and donated to us by Erica Schaefer, and so that's like all her work right there as some prime examples of Gothic normal streetwear. So yeah, so I'm very pleased with those. I hope that she is too. I'm super proud of them.
Next question.
Yeah. More questions? Yes.
Josh.
Yes.
Sorry to touch back on that. It's not a part of the game, right? So I saw an exchange really about dying early on Saturday in the day, and what impact that might have on the player's experience of the game if you revive the next morning. Is staff's intention to include any mechanics, items, things of rarity that can reduce the revive time in those situations to help get the player back in the game?
I haven't thought about that. Maybe I don't want to cheapen the experience. I understand that it's frustrating. I understand that, like, you know, to be killed early Saturday morning and have to wait all day sucks. But the plan is to have like some fun NPCs on hand that are like, this is please feel free to take this as your own, or you know, we also could really use you for support staffing. I also intend to have on the site kind of like a decompression lounge area. So you just kind of want to go there, hang out, talk out of character, like that's an option as well. I'm not convinced that I want to introduce items and things to shorten the amount of time before your resurrection. I need to think about that more. But
Thank you.
Yeah.
Regarding actually the length of time, specifically, what is your kind of plan if you have one at this point regarding how long your playtime is going to be, whether it's going to be like Friday night and Sunday morning and Sunday afternoon? What is your style of kind of how the event is going to start and look like at this point in time?
We've debated it. We have. I feel like with people's work schedules, the thing that makes the most sense is like we start Friday nights and we go till like Sunday, like because people also need to decompress. We need to tear down stuff.
Yeah.
Since like I own a site now, there's a lot of work to do on it, but the intention is to have it be a lot less stressful. You know, like I'm hoping to have a situation where like, you know, we can set up like leisurely throughout the week. If you want to drop off your stuff Thursday night or whatever, like feel free. We've got a lot more options and freedom without having to be beholden to somebody else. But yeah, I just feel like in general, like that kind of standard Friday nights to Sunday around like noonish is a vision that I would have just for the standard.
When people die, do they come back? You said they probably lose a bit of memory around the event. Do they have any memory of being dead? Secrets and what?
Legends and myths.
There was a proposal that I had at one point that I have initially decided against. But initially I had thought that perhaps it would be cool if when people died, they had kind of like a trial, like an experience that kind of a harrowing, to borrow a rape term. But I was worried about staff resources. I was worried about timing. I was worried about being stretched too thin, and so I elected at this point against it. We may still do that for your what is likely to be your final death, to kind of either bring you some resolution and closure and kind of end your story with a little bow. That's sometimes we're trying to work out how that would work with limited staff resources. I want to plan for limited staff resources, and then if I've got more, great, then I say that.
We had I think discussed doing that for the usual final.
So in a way, like that's kind of like that. But in general, I would say that the experiences that you come back and you're very cognizant that there are holes in your knowledge and in who you're, because I mean, you know, like if one of your memories that you lose is of like your children or something, like that's intense. And so I would think like the role play experience is kind of that groggy, like kind of coming out of a coma, coming out of from under anesthesia, and realizing that there's stuff you don't know about yourself anymore.
Also, you teleported. It's kind of hard to miss.
But what do you want?
I said also you teleported. It's kind of hard to miss.
That's what I know is in the tavern. Now I'm on the field.
I got really, really drunk last night.
Yeah, congrats to everything about
In your vacation, your kids, how broad are those memories? Are they that shaping where like my parents beat me, or is it my parents ad nauseum, all my memories of me? Where does that decision come down as to what qualifies as a core memory?
So kind of like in Age, you know, where you create your character and staff kind of like reviews it, and it's like if this needs some work or some tweaking. That's kind of how I view your memories. Like I'm putting that on you. Like what are the things that are really important to your character that are these core memories? And I would ideally what I would love to see is I would love to be it to be something specific. Like, you know, my son Caleb, when he was born, there was a constellation of stars in the sky that could be seen extremely clearly, and this was a good omen. And my son is so gifted because of this constellation, and you know, he's shown throughout his life that he is amazingly talented in navigation and survival. So it's like it's detailed. I'm not just looking for like my son Caleb, unless you're looking for that broad of a situation with your character, and when you die, you just forget to choose someone. So I'm kind of leaving that to you guys. You know, we might push back if it's like not a very impactful memory, which, you know, but it's your character, it's your story. So there's a lot of leeway to that. Unless anyone wants to.
I think that's a really good point, though, is that we really want to focus on making the story together. We really want to be telling story to friends. So we do want to make the kind of story you're looking for, basically. Yeah.
Make it a good story.
Make it
Let's see here. What's another stuff? What does a day in the life look like for a character? Awful. No, it's going to vary by your culture. One of the things I probably should tell you guys is that we're doing away with classes in character creation. Classes are not something you choose anymore because it doesn't really matter. The way the world works and is now is, you know, great. You say you're a noble, like, can you eat gold? Like no, and so the class stratifications just don't mean what they used to. So we're not having characterification being that you choose a peasant or gentry or scum or anything like that. You can definitely say that you're anything, but it's not going to give you a certain mechanical anythings.
But there are people who are still better at or whatever. But like, it's not like you know.
Yeah.
I mean, there might be some parts we're dealing with people with their own culture.
Maybe, yeah. We definitely are. We're in development with quirks and flaws, and there will be cultural specific quirks and flaws. Yeah. So the culture packets, as you see, like we tried to make them detailed enough to give you what information you might want to have about your culture, and we're trying to be consistent with what we cover. We're trying to cover, you know, the food and the holidays and ethics and costuming and things that can kind of help you portray your culture and what is important to that. Yes.
Will different cultures have different morality systems?
Yes. Yes, they do. Not everybody has the same morality. There are cultural differences in terms of what is a sin and what is not, which is going to be another source potentially of cultural conflict.
There are some universals.
There are some universals. There are some things that everybody can agree are bad. You know, but
we're just like, I mean, come on, why?
Murder is still bad. Murder is still bad. I'm sorry, Lou. Murder is still bad. When did this start? But yeah, there will be variation on the cultures, and that's actually not covered in the cultures packet explicitly. We don't have a like, these are your sins. Those will be on the website, which actually should be our next rules update because we've got that all figured out. We just haven't posted it yet. All right. Yeah. So I mean, basically, like a day in your life it's honestly probably going to look different on the game stage than it would be in your backstory, because you know, all of you conceivably have a reason for your PC to be on the game stage, like why you uprooted and came to this location, and that's something that, you know, we'll help you figure out. But you're uprooting your life and moving to where we're going to be having to cenotaph. So that's going to look different than the backstory, like I already said. So I think that answers the question. Do you guys have anything to add to that? What daily life looks like? Okay. All right. Maybe outpost. That's a good word.
Ruins.
Yes.
For the Sims, does it follow a similar thing in Gothic where there are thresholds and parameters or obscenities after that?
Yes.
And is there the same connotation or same resolution in situations where you're atoning or have some sort of atoning-esque ritual or action?
Yes.
Cool.
Yes, that system will be very similar to what you're used to. What is the currency of the world? So, shame. So, we have, like I mentioned earlier, you can't eat gold. So we're not having a coin-based system for most cultures. Most of the way the world operates is based off of trade. So it's a barter system. However, even with a barter system, you sort of have to have a base unit of meaningful currency. So we're using salt. Oh, salt. It's always useful. And I also just really
very
like,
cheap.
And you can eat it.
yeah, you can eat it, you can preserve with it, there's all kinds of things to do. Salt is so useful.
Super useful.
Yeah. Plus I just really like the idea of wealthy salt. Yes.
Just out of curiosity, salt, is it like some sort of special salt that everyone recognizes? For me, like, high guy from the skin, and be like, I'm just sweating making money. Like, just collect it with a can?
I mean, it's useful. The idea is it's a barter system, so it's useful things to trade.
Yeah.
So you can technically, yeah. Maybe there's a correlate salt mine where there's like salty ingredients how people sweat.
Go panning for salt.
It tastes like sadness. It tastes like joy.
However, we will have a special something we are giving. We are growing crystals and breaking.
So yeah, I actually already covered this. Are the Sims going to be the same? They're different. Look for an update on the website coming pretty soon, because that should get there. What is the relative power of players in the world? So the intention is for you to start feeling useful, like to start game one feeling like you're a little better than the standard Joe off the street. And that's sorry, Joe. That's true. But yeah, so you can feel at least comfortable that by virtue of being a PC, you're a little special. That you're a little more skilled than the average individual that you may have encountered back home. That being said, NPCs are going to be highly variable. Our plan is to have a back-end amount of information for staff, so that when we have to do off-the-cuff NPCs, when we've got to there's a base sheet and a base understanding that we can easily pass around to people that have just quickly volunteered to fill a support staff shift, and not have it, and to have those guidelines ready to go. I kind of want to steal something from Alliance, actually. They've got this cool thing where when they send out NPCs, they have a card, and one side of it's kind of like the standard, like normal enemy like stats, and then there's another side of it that's like, this is much more advanced. And so the person has the ability to kind of choose if they're like, this was intended to be an encounter for one person, and there are 30 people here. I'm going to use the higher version of my NPC card. You know, or like, ooh, I meant this to be for 30 people, and there's like one noob here. So I kind of want to steal that. I like that idea a lot. but I don't want that information to be available to the player base. I want NPCs to be more of a mystery, because you don't know necessarily what this person is like. And I know there's been requests for me to publish sample NPC sheets, but I don't want to. So, yes, yeah.
When it comes to enemies, wizards. There is magic, you said, in the system. Is it the intention that players are playing wizards? What extent are the wizards? That sort of thing.
You can play a magician in Glory, just like before.
Do they have a similar power scale as the Lion Age? Or are they more muted? Are they more empowered?
We're assuming they're completely new mechanics in every way, right?
Yes and no. There's going to be, if you've played a magic using the Lion Age, there will be similarities and things that are familiar. But we are changing them. We're making magic a little more difficult to cast in that there will be components that you have to get each time. So part of your game as a magic user will be obtaining the things that you need, trading for them, stealing them, going on quests for them.
Similar to like D&D where, pinch of silver for your fireball.
Exactly.
Got it. Okay.
Exactly. So that's kind of, you may either be frustrated by that or enjoy it. That part of your time spent as a mage will be acquiring materials. Yeah, and you'll always need your scroll for your various spells. So like I said, it's going to be a little more complicated, and we're also for folks that really like creating their own things, you might be frustrated because we're going to be limiting your ability to invent magic spells. There will be an opportunity for you to petition your guild for other spells and access to other spells, but it is not going to be every game. It's probably going to be more on a quarterly basis that you can contact your guild. Yes.
So for components for magic, is it going to kind of be like herbalism where it's competitive and there's only a certain number of materials on the field, or is there going to be fairly renewable ways to get materials? How's that going to work?
That some things will be harder than others. Really powerful spells are going to require more rare or difficult to obtain items. So that will vary.
Okay.
But if it's like a pretty standard, like low level spell, I think that should be set as easy to find.
Okay, cool. I dig it.
And I saw other hands. Yeah.
So you may have answered this already. We came a little late, but what does commerce look like in this game?
So it's a review question. It's fine. It's trade based. It's a barter system economy with a base currency of salts, meaning the thing that value is measured against. So, but
is there any out of place based economy?
Like Glory?
No. That's sorry. That was a That was a poorly worded question. Is there an economy outside of the game that we're actually playing?
Greater world.
Like a
greater world economy. Can I be an import-export specialist dealing with someone else outside the game space?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Right?
Sort of.
Yeah.
The world is not as organized. There's not an overarching government. So you can maybe talk with a caravan and prepay for stuff with an item or something.
Okay.
But it's gonna be not as. I can't be like, hey, what's the price of gold and fetish cut right now?
Well, let me tell you.
Yeah. I see. Yeah, that's a much more detailed answer.
Yeah,
thank you.
Yeah, with things being less organized, there's just more time in between things. So if you do make a request for something in game, it may take a lot longer than you anticipated.
And you're probably gonna do the seating game. You have to talk to Chantel, the fishmonger, about what she wants you to do fish.
She will always and forever now be Chantal.
Yes.
So it's make a deal with the caravan.
Yeah. A lot of cultures in this world are very isolated and homebound. But there is one culture in particular that travels around a lot and is responsible for most of the intercultural trade. So,
thank you.
All right. I feel like we've gone over that one. What are? I could have gone over that one. Sorry. Are monsters common or uncommon? They're super common. The world's proper fucked. Let's see here. Yes. Yeah, like a lot of these we've already touched upon.
Do you guys have any other questions? Like, I think we're near the right list.
Yeah.
Yeah, Sean?
As far as costume requirements for armor, how realistic do you want? You know, if I'm wearing a leather breastplate, does it need to be a certain thickness? If I'm wearing a metal breastplate, does it need to be a specific material?
I believe all of it is allow like the polyurethane plate if it was masterwork or something.
Yes.
Yeah.
We talked about in general. If you have like real practical armor, it will work. We're not going to measure thicknesses or gauges in order to determine. We're not going to get that granular with it. We have bucket categories to make it a bit simple and easier for you to understand what your armor counts as. And as with most LARPs, if you have a suit of armor that is made out of polyurethane or some sort of alternative substance that looks awesome, it pretty much counts as like a masterwork suit of armor in game because you're making it out of some sort of additional substance that isn't, you know, and then that'll be sort of like listed out ahead of time so that you could sort of understand, here are the materials we have available to make armors out of in game. So if it's not one of the basic ones like leather or hide or, you know, metal or chain or something, then it would fit into one of these categories.
We also haven't fully mapped that out yet, though. So do you have any suggestions?
Yes.
No.
And that's sort of the basic direction we're headed to, but we haven't, like you said, fleshed out the exact details.
So if you have opinions and like you think something should count as legitimate, let us know.
Yeah.
So clarification, Ryder, on that question. Does that mean if we make something out of a non-traditional material, it'll be harder in-game to get?
Yes.
Okay.
That is the current thinking. That may change as we iterate on stuff.
If you screw it up, that's no.
Yeah. But we're still going for like immersive sort of atmosphere, so no like, you know, I call them condom armor. Armors with all little tiny like plastic rings in it.
You can. I mean, I know that there's gonna be a culture too that we're gonna go big into that with. Oh, kind of off that question though. We are using the same sort of system where armor only counts like where you're wearing it. So it's not like you've got like phantom armor all over your body. You've got like, you know, 3 pieces or whatever. Like it's just what's covered. So you know, if I get hits like in my elbow and I don't have something there to protect my elbow, that hits as not hit armor. So yeah, which I think you guys are mostly used to, but just that bears repeating.
So this is showing my great ignorance. I don't have time to study games until next week. But are we allowed to play monsters? Like, are we allowed to play them?
That's like it just mentioned.
It is just yeah. No, your question was very timely. You can play cultists. Yes, it will be a glory cost because there will be, much like a priest, magician, or whatever special concept, there are certain rituals and things that are available to you. You can't play. So special concept, you can play cultist. There is an entire culture of people that are considered tainted or cursed because they have strange characteristics, weird eyes, horns, claws. So you got like kind of a whole culture of weirdos that you could play.
And some of the other hobbies also have parts that are also might be weird about them.
That's
so,
right. Yeah.
So the answer is yes. In
Yes.
different ways.
You can play a monstrous weirdo. Yes.
Cool. That's so fun.
I've already answered how old age is treated. I've touched upon when the world ended, technology. We're going to use the other language symbol that you guys are familiar with. We're still kind of figuring out if we want to do like a different one for the different languages or how we would signal that. That's kind of a work in progress. We'll take suggestions.
I like that idea.
You know?
Because then you can tell which language. So that way it's like, oh, which language are you talking?
Yeah, and you can just immediately tell, like, I definitely understand that language, or yeah.
Definitely don't emphasize it if you don't want to, but an audible cue or any kind of audible cue that you are speaking a different language is good for people who have really super good hearing and hear you around a corner and can't tell you're doing this.
Another debate that we've had.
Yep.
We're still debating. Yeah.
We're still figuring out exactly how to language stuff.
In chatting about if you're speaking another language, how do you do like an accent?
Or alternatively, maybe like a word you'd say, and then the additional conversation. For those of us who suck at accents.
One of the questions on here is there a most common culture or language? It's not like in the Lion Age where most everyone was kind of like united under an empire. So there isn't really like a most common culture. There is kind of a pigeon trade language that people can use to like communicate. That's kind of like your baseline to allow you to talk with other players, which I'd like you to be able to do.
Everyone to your corners.
But no, it's not like assumed that, for example, everyone speaks Gothic or anything like that. Like the kind of common unifying language is a pigeon trade tongue, and then you've got your own culture's language. We've talked about that. If you kill yourself, what happens? It's an automatic devotion loss.
Suicide is bad.
Which is if you remember impossible memories.
Yes.
We gotta think about this.
Oh, yes.
What if the suicide is in direct service to your devotion? I kill myself in order to prevent something that would hurt the person that my devotion is loved to.
We'll argue about it.
Okay.
Take my brain answer.
Yeah. We'll figure it out.
Reminds me of a question. If you have like some kind of contagious disease or something, when you die,
it kind of depends. Like, did you just catch it? Like, and that's kind of what
Is it what killed you?
Yeah, is it like what immediately killed you?
or like, oh god, I got like
Yeah, but it's sort of a chronic thing that you have like for a while when you die. Like it's there. Yeah. How do the betas work? The beta events. So the intention, and I'm trying to be very cautious here because until this first fundraising event, I didn't have the money to book sites, and I hadn't yet purchased the site. So the intention is for there to be 3 beta events. I would like them to be full weekend events because I feel like that's the best way to see if stuff is working. So I'd like them to be full weekend events. I would like them to actually be on sites other than the main big sites. What my vision for the betas is kind of an Oregon Trail game. And so there'll be kind of 3 of them, and you can start here, and we'll have like one site rented, and then the next game will be at a different site, and then the third game will be at a different site, and that will be our opportunity to heavily be sure that everything works before we're going into game 1.
And I'd like to offer a way for you to rewrite the character at that point, basically, to resubmit. That way you can still play the same character, but obviously when you play the game, there'll be betas. You'll be able, before you actually enter game 1, actually
this doesn't quite at all.
If you don't like the character you play later, you can also make the game instead.
Are you looking at those being 2020 or the end of this year?
2020. Ideally, I would love to have like the first beta be in February 2020. So I would like. That's what we're shooting for anyway. But it's now my hunt begins for reasonable cost sites because now you guys are doing some money. I appreciate that very, very much. Thank you.
Progression. Are you trying to do any progression systems in the betas, or are you saving all that sort of thing for games when actually starting?
I mean, in terms of like
character progression.
I wasn't planning on giving you an XP advantage. I was planning on rewards rather than XP.
As well as eventually, the beta events make, if you reference in here, the beta events make items. They're useful to you.
Because I want to thank you guys for helping us, test the systems and coming to the betas and, paying whatever ticket cost I've got to charge for those. But I also don't necessarily want everyone that participates to start way stronger than everybody else. There's 3 betas.
Do you know how many people you'll allow in each beta? Are you going to have a hard cap to?
It kind of depends on the site that we choose. Ideally, I wouldn't want to put a cap on it because the more people testing, the better. But I can't fully answer that question. Yeah.
On the testing thing is another reminder since people jumped in. There's a sign-in sheet on the back table. If you would like to be a part of our rules testing, we'll be starting to run rules testing very soon. Please sign your name and all your information on the back.
And if you're interested in the different guide testing, write your name down there and tell us what you're interested in.
Yeah.
Stephanie, how often are you planning to run the actual game events? Like how many times a year?
The intention is every 8 weeks, so every 2 months. It should be pretty easy for me to get the dates that I want. But I want to keep some in mind both for the staff and for the players too, because there's a lot of LARPs out there, and so I don't want it to be too frequent. I also don't want it to be too infrequent either. So, how does XP work? We have not touched upon this yet. There's going to be an XP cap. Oh, cool. I thought people were going to start screaming at me, actually. Excellent. We do not have an intention to do an XP scaling situation. Like for example, if you start with a higher XP amount on your sheets, you only earn 2 or 1 XP per game. We're not really planning on doing the scaling system. It's going to be a set amount of XP per game. There are things that you can do in game, like get a devotion win to get extra XP per event, but there will be a cap.
It's also not variable cost. You can't reduce it by having a
We are planning on eliminating.
Yeah, well, we're planning on having XP be fixed so that it's easy for the player base and for us to keep track of things and for you to understand how much something costs without having to do a bunch of mental math. How much am I going to get? How much is this going to cost? Yeah, and then a overall cap as well.
We also are going to be limiting the amount of XP you can get from flaws. So
you could take any number of flaws you want, but you can only ever gain a certain amount of XP from it.
Yeah. Like costuming. What costuming are your requirements do you have? I mean, we've got examples for you, and we have a Pinterest board that I'll make more public as we progress. But I mean, I want you guys to have fun. I want you to be comfortable. I do want there to be immersion. If someone shows up to game in jeans and sneakers, I'll probably pull them aside and have them borrow some NPC gear. But I mean, we're going to try to be upfront with showing examples and photos and Pinterest boards of what your culture has. We've got it in culture packets. So yeah.
I mean, that actually, a couple of the pieces are just literally things I bought on Amazon. I found in a thrift store and then used.
That's so cool.
So,
that's so cool.
So there's a pair of pants that are just a pair of rat pants that I sprayed bleach on and sanded, and it's awesome.
So talented.
So it's totally doable without selling.
So, when it comes to costuming, are we more worried about technical accuracy or aesthetics?
Aesthetics.
Great.
Trying
not to throw shade here.
Again, there is nothing historically accurate about this game at all.
Right.
It's wizards. Wizards.
Some built by elves or
Oh, you folks that like non-human races are going to be disappointed.
No, that would.
Yeah.
The merchant race made zippers at some point.
Yeah, like I'm not gonna be sad if I see a zipper.
My mentality has always been if it looks cool and it fits with the theme, why not?
Yeah. I want you to feel cool. I want the game to look cool. Like feel cool. Like yeah, we can have zipper technology. Like that's dwarves.
I think there's definitely this feel around like the idea of like doing like having an aesthetic that like looks appropriate for what you're doing, but also not like trying to put people out. So it's like, well, that's not a traditional shoe. You have to have shoes that will literally break your ankles if you wear them for accuracy purposes. Like it's wear a boot with ankle support, please, so you don't hurt yourself. So like that kind of stuff where it's you're still comfortable, but there is this aesthetic that's like that guy looks dope.
Yeah. Yes.
Is there anything between games? Like, is there any sort of downtime activity or?
There will be downtimes. Yes. The intention is to make them kind of streamlined, like you choose from this list.
What's a list off the top of your head? Like just in like very
So
archaeology. We're in an archaeology system.
There's gathering, there's crafting, there's an organization, there's a rulership-like system. It's mostly the same from us.
Okay.
Yeah.
There's
the big difference is we don't have warfare.
We don't have
We have a different muscle-based organization.
Yeah.
Thing happening.
Yeah. The world doesn't really have standing armies. There's mercenary groups, but there's not really like standing armies and knights and things like that.
Sure.
So warfare is not really a thing. But archaeology should be pretty interesting, actually, if that's something that floats your boat. Yeah. We're probably not going to have retainers work the way they used to. There might be some.
Yeah, but they don't exist anymore.
Yeah, like pre-honing lineage, which I mean, to be fair, a lot of our mechanics, some of our ideas came before the honing completed.
True.
But yeah, so if you're not familiar with post-honing lineage, you were like relying on pre-honing lineage, like we're not going to be doing it that way. And I think that's basically everything. You guys have asked most of the questions on here. In terms of mechanics, as you guys are also probably familiar with, it's not really like a class system. There's not really like I am a rogue, and therefore I have these skills available to me. The game is very much like a skill-based system. You can build the type of rogue that you have in your mind or something like that. So there's not like set classes other than special concepts. But we are designing the mechanic system, and Jason and Dexter, you can jump in because they've done a lot of the work on this. But we're using something you might have seen in video games, a tree-based skill system. So whereas you get the first level of the skill is like a very general common skill, and you get that, and then it starts, as you continue on, it starts branching, and you choose specializations, and you choose things as you progress. The overall philosophy is that some of your more general, useful skills are going to be the base of the tree. And as you progress along, it's going to be more about getting little edges and things to make you just a little bit better in this thing. So it may be a little alien to some people because it's going to be more XP for a littler edge, but the intention is to have that edge mean something. So that's kind of going to look different to you than what you're used to, but that's what we're currently working on. That's our philosophy.
The major philosophy behind it is to incentivize player specialization so that you feel cool in your decisions, and then you feel that you're unique so that not all heavy weapons fighters are exactly the same. And then you have options as far as what you want to do and how you want to express what your character does.
Question, Mike?
So you said earlier that there's
going to be a cap on the XP that you get. And then there are trees that you branch out on skill-wise. Is there a system in place or a thought that you have in mind for retraining something? Say I buy something, it's cool for a little while, then I realize I hate it. And I want to get rid of that and go down another specialization. Is there a system for that?
I don't know.
We haven't really talked about that yet because we're only just getting to the point where our skill tree stuff is at a testable level.
Yeah.
But
I'm comfortable with, I don't know, I was just wondering if you had anything in mind.
Yeah. If you have any ideas, though,
yeah.
I do.
send them our way.
Yes.
Okay. And Wyatt.
Follow up on that. When you say XP cap, do you mean there's like a hard cap of like 50 XP, or is it like a cap as the game goes on?
So it's like a hard cap, like like 100 XP or whatever. However, that being said, the intention is that there still is stuff that you could do to earn in game beyond that XP cap. You can get kind of like achievement points to spend on some special things. So if you really are attached to this character and you're like I don't even care if I'm not getting XP anymore. I want to keep going. There's still stuff that you can attain.
Think of it as in-game content.
Yeah. Yeah.
So then the vision from what you may have said this earlier and missed it. The vision then is that you switch out characters with some regularity. When do you hit that cap? How many games do you play before you hit that cap?
We still want to test that.
Yeah.
We kind of want to crunch a bunch of numbers and see. But the intention, I would think, you guys can correct me, but I would think that roughly 3 to 5 years of play, that's kind of the goal we're going for.
Yeah.
It's a long time.
So there,
Yeah.
Well, that is very different from what
The idea is that we give you enough time to tell a story that is cool and that you are able to interact with and influence the game in a way that is meaningful.
Yeah.
Right? So it's not like this idea of we cap you so that you can't do a lot. The idea is that we want to give you time to tell a story, but that story arc is also it has a progression. There's a reason for doing the things that you're doing. We want to incentivize the way you make choices as a character and have those choices be meaningful to you.
We also want to make sure that as part of our testing process that we build out fully fleshed characters and make sure that XP cap feels like it's done.
Yeah.
And not do this halfway up.
Yeah, and the SP cap is meant to simulate max mortal peak achievement as far as anything I can understand and know and do. But that doesn't mean that your influence is capped or that your organizations are capped. There's plenty of other things for you to engage with. Think of an MMO. There's plenty of in-game content past the level cap that you can still do cool stuff with that isn't directly tied to getting a new skill.
Right. I love character development. That's my jam. So I don't want to feel stymied. I was imagining being stymied after a year.
Yeah.
I gotta go die now.
Minimum a few years is kind of our initial thinking.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just we are like you're reading between the lines. So we do want people to eventually launch a new character. We don't necessarily want the one person who's been playing their same character for 10 years, plus, and no one can they've already maxed out everything. Their sheet's black. Sure. We don't want that. So. Yeah.
Well, world lore wise, right? Your goal is actually almost to kind of die in a way that is in line with your devotion, so you don't become a monster. So the system itself is set up for you to try to find and interact with the world in a way that is meaningful to your character and has choice.
And as you know, we do have as we previously mentioned, we have a benefit to dying peacefully. You get something to bring on to your next character. Yeah.
Stephanie?
So, kind of as a follow-up to that, you're envisioning that retiring a character does mean choosing to die peacefully and not the character goes off and does something else.
I mean, once you go ahead.
I would say it's always an option to go off and do something else. If you're not having fun, if you want to retire, or if you've told the entire thing, feel free to. I am sending her back to Felmstead.
It's just an option, not necessarily a.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Exactly. Because everybody's different. Some people really don't like the idea of their character dying, and so if they've got a choice and they'd rather send them off into the sunset, We are a, you can only play one character at a time game. So much like in the Lion Age, we'll let you kind of shelve one if circumstances are cool and they're not in the middle of something insane right now or contentious. But we want you to focus on one character at a time. So I didn't have any more questions on the sheet. So
any other questions at all? All right.
Joe's got one.
So you said the technology was 1600. Does that mean that the ability to produce that no one is around, or is that that's what people have found and scavenged and they can't recreate?
There's not a lot of mass production. There's not the resources available in the world for there to be a lot of mass production of it. So if you're thinking printing presses and stuff, that's not really around very much.
It's not mass production, but say someone invented a long seafaring vessel, but no one knows how to make it anymore. Is that kind of the thing? So 1600 they had the long seafaring vessels, but there's select few who have made it.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking post-apocalyptic world, the people who are making it aren't around anymore. The schematics got whatever happened to the world is destroyed.
There is definitely some weird stuff like that. Where there's some things that are, wonderfully preserved marvels, but the folks aren't quite sure how to recreate it. That's a thing. Yeah. In the 16th century.
All right. Well.
Cool.
We
I've
have
been talking forever.
You have been. It's almost done.